Welcome back to Articulated Points. This should be our 5th episode already. Wow, we're getting along. I know we didn't put out a full episode last month. If you didn't notice, we put out a shorter talking point episode instead. Sometimes we just can't get around to recording with our busy schedules, so we've kind of come up with that as a way for us to still get content out on the regular.
Yeah, be looking for more of those sometime soon. That's kind of one of our goals, was to be able to do some smaller things anyway. And Philip said, hey, how about we just call them talking points? And I thought, well, that's a perfect idea because it fits with the title, and it'll give us the opportunity to do some things that may not actually be worth covering in an entire episode.
Yeah, so they're really just short, single-subject videos, and something we can pump out a lot faster than these, which require a lot more editing, a lot more time recording, a lot more gathering of materials.
Yeah, so hopefully the things that we're going to talk about today are actually worth being in the episode and not just talking points.
We've just talked ourselves into a corner.
I think we did.
Well, speaking of today, on the docket is, first up, some JoeCon custom class figures. We're going to be talking about those. Then something called Photon, which, well, there's a myriad of definitions for that one. But specifically a laser tag called Photon. And then Patrick's going to take a look at a 1987 set of Takara catalogs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You've been covering some Photon stuff with me recently, and I've been curious, so I'm kind of curious to see what you have there. But first we're going to be talking about the G.I.Joe convention figures, and we're specifically talking about not the ones that everybody would buy at the convention or at home, but the ones that are part of the custom class. So they were figures that you had to customize them yourself, right?
Yeah, you had to be in the custom class, which usually took place on the Wednesday or Thursday before the actual convention. So you had to get there a little bit earlier, you had to pay a little bit more, and you had to have a little patience and not, cut yourself an X-Acto knife.
Well, I always brought a few extra Band-Aids, because I think that cutting myself or gluing myself to something is at some point inevitable.
It's part of the experience.
That's right. I guess we should mention that a long time ago there were those convention figures that had a somewhat official basis that were coming from the Dizamon conventions. That's not what these are, because those were figures that were mass customized by the showrunner and then sold. These were ones that were parts that were made specific for the show, and that's really what makes these unique. They're not pieces that you could just go buy and then put everything together. There was a lot of customizing to the parts and scratch build creation that brought these parts to physical form and then were custom cast. So it was a low run that was done on all of them, and all of them are somewhat unique. You're not just going to run out and buy these in store.
And it's worth pointing out, these are not the first custom classes that JoeCon had. They was actually available for many years, but in the beginning and for most of the custom classes, basically Hasbro would just bring a big box of parts and dump it on a table and let anybody in their class go wild and make their own thing. Beginning with 2014's Joe convention, it was a directed build where you were given parts. And everybody got to work towards the same figure, but there was really no rules. You didn't have to make that figure. You didn't have to make the figure according to how it was originally envisioned. So every one of these figures is actually unique in that way, because each customizer put their own personal touch on it.
Yeah, so you can't really expect these to all look exactly alike. As a matter of fact, every time that I was at one of these shows, I would make sure that I looked at what everyone was doing. And sometimes people were coming up with really creative and different things than what the example was that was shown. So it wasn't a situation where you were directed to make it exactly what the example looked like. So if these things start popping up online for sale across the future years, they're not all going to look alike. As a matter of fact, we should expect them to look very different. Speaking of creative visions, well, I'll show mine after you show yours.
So for the first year's figures, it's actually my favorite. in addition to the normal cast person, which is J.E. Russell, he was the one who was putting these together with like, help from some other community casters like Rage and Spoon. The first year's design was Chef, who, if you can tell by the little artwork I've made on my own for a little backer card there, was actually an unrealized 80s character that eventually evolved into Starduster. What makes Chef special is that in addition to the regular custom class customizers making the figures, we actually had the involvement of Boss Fight Studios. And they actually created the little apron down there and actually did the little retool work on the torso from an existing G.I.Joe piece to better fit the look of the figure. So this is the figure as I put it together. We were given the head, the torso, waist, and the apron along with the shoulder holster and the pistol. We had to supply the limbs. So that's another point where the figure will vary, is that everybody brought their own limbs and not everybody used the same parts. In addition to that, we were given some pots and pans and a ladle, a spoon, and a pot. And because this was the year of the zombie set, we were actually given a little brain to cook. So you could put that brain in the pot and, well, Chef would serve up some brains for the Toxo zombies.
And mine, I mentioned that mine's super creative. I customized mine into a bag of parts, I guess. It's really boring. I'm sorry. I didn't, that year I just didn't come prepared. You know, I wasn't sure which parts I wanted to bring, and I'm so ridiculously picky that I didn't want to, you know, it's like you get one shot at this with these parts. I didn't want to mess them up. I wanted it to be a figure that I would be happy to own. So from that year on out, what I did was I made sure that I paid attention online to exactly what parts I may need to bring for the other limbs so that I would actually have fun. Because the other thing that I want to mention about these customizing classes is that it's almost like a customizing jam session where all these people who are really awesome customizers get together with people like me and some others there. It was a little bit of a learning experience for some. I mean, I have been customizing as far back as maybe the early 90s, but I'm very particular about the way I want things to look. So I have yet to put my Chef together, which is sad. It does make me sad. But from then on out, I came more prepared.
I did forget, we also got a little slide decal for a tattoo on his arm. That's another way that the custom class likes to personalize the figures, is by giving you a decal to put on just about every year, just to give it that extra little touch.
Yeah, it does. For sure it does. And I actually think that the one for the following year, I really felt that those decals really set off this custom and made it look really good. Like even if you weren't on top of your game painting everything, as soon as you put those decals on, it kind of makes the thing pop.
Now, in addition to the figure, if you finished your figure in class, you actually got a little bonus. For 2014, these were the very fun Boss Fight produced honeydew bat parts. Honeydew, like a honeydew list. So you get this attachment for a bat arm. This is, a vacuum cleaner. It's a two-part, the silver vacuum cleaner and then this black hose. There's a hedge trimmer, just to, this could be useful in battle too, but just the thought of, bats grooming the landscaping around Cobra Island is pretty fun. And then probably my favorite of all, this this mechanized plunger. And I'm kind of bummed I never got around to painting these. I probably should, but as part of the demonstration, I got to see, I think it was Eric Aranya up front painting these parts, and he did a pretty good job of painting this plunger. And I think I got a picture of that, and if we do, I'll make sure we insert it in here, so you get to see what he did.
Yeah, we were both standing there while he was painting that, and I was amazed at how steady his hand is at painting lines on items, because, if it were me painting this, the thickness of the line going around that would have not been nearly as consistent. It's like he knows exactly how much paint to have on the brush, the speed to paint it at, and he has that steady hand spin, getting it like this corkscrew thing painted just perfectly. It was definitely something to see.
Yeah, it was a real professional at work getting to see it. And
Right.
speaking of, they're actually, while we were doing this, I think it was Dave Proctor was also doing a demonstration in ZBrush. He was actually sculpting on this computer a part while we were watching. In this case, it was a helmet for a Sludge Viper, because, as you recall, the 2014 figure that is based on the Sludge Viper doesn't actually have a proper helmet. It's a reuse of the Toxo Viper helmet, or the Zombie Viper helmet. So just in that class, we got to see him digitally sculpting and seeing the process and what these guys do for a living. It was actually pretty fun.
Yeah, I think the club was kind of leaving the opportunity open to do a Sludge Viper later by including that figure instead, which, as I recall, was based on an earlier name for Sludge Vipers, or an earlier name for a pre-production figure. So they kind of went a different way with that, rather than doing Sludge Vipers directly, while not being able to give us a Sludge Viper helmet. So I kind of thought that was the right move on their part. I know tons of us bought like the Rage and Spoon conversion kit and got an extra figure and made a Sludge Viper for ourselves.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
And then I like to put my custom class figures in these little cases. This is actually a bubble for a Star Wars Disney Parks Droid Factory figure. This is what you can actually get inside a Disney park, and then I just swap out the cardboard backing.
Parks, really?
You never heard that? Yeah, it's kind of a thing I do. But anyway, I kind of in Photoshop put together this little custom backer card and then just cut it out and drop it in, so I have a nice little display piece.
Yeah, that definitely helps make it look pretty good. I like it.
Now, 2015 was a year I sadly didn't get to go to a Joe convention, so Patrick's going to have to take it away for this one.
2015, I really liked, like I mentioned before, I really liked the water slide decals that they came up with. They did kind of like a metallic water slide decal for one of them, but it is Robo-Joe. You could see that the parts are kind of based on RoboCop, which some people saw as a criticism of this figure, but I liked it because if you look at the original Robo-Joe, his sculpt is somewhat based on RoboCop. So by basing this sculpt on RoboCop, it just made a lot of sense to me.
Are you implying that Robo-Joe has something to do with RoboCop?
Oh,
because
no.
I don't see any similarity at all.
No, there's no similarity.
Robo-Joe is totally different from RoboCop.
Yeah, you're right. It's totally different. Entirely different. Nothing at all the same. But I gave mine a little bit of the splatter. I don't know what else to call it. I used
Speckling?
There's speckling of orange on here. And what I ended up doing was very carefully shielding the work area and then using a toothbrush. You know, if you take a toothbrush and kind of just run your thumb on it, it'll spit a little bit of water off of it. Well, I put paint on there and had it spit a little bit of paint all over the figure. So it actually came out pretty decently, and I'm proud of this one. He's holding together very nicely still. I'm happy with it. He came with several accessories. A gun that does not look like RoboCop's gun. Does not. Not at all. Not at all. The bonus that year, they kind of followed up the Honeydew bat with a construction bat set. It has a helmet to put on a bat, as well as tools for a bat to use. There's a shovel, a drill. These are kind of, I think they're based on some of the core weapons, is what they are. So, from the 3 3/4 inch line. But I was really happy with this one. This one was a fun time. Finally, I showed up with actually the parts that I needed to get the custom done. And sitting around customizing with a bunch of guys is just a ton of fun. Oh, the club that year actually was also nice. I probably should note that the club gave us these for free that year. This is a clear stand that you were able to purchase. It's actually a Collectors Club exclusive that I think for a lot of people kind of flew under the radar. The club did make these available in a set of, I think, 20, and they're relatively cheap. And in my opinion, it really sets off the figure that it's standing on, because clearly it's a G.I. Joe stand, but the figure you want to put on it, maybe it's a custom, maybe you have a pre-production sample of something that you want to put on here. Regardless of what you're putting on here, it looks cool setting it out and apart from all the other things in the collection. So definitely recommend picking up some of these if you can, and I appreciate that the club went to that to pass some of those out.
And I think as of this recording, you can still get those clear stands in their store before it shuts down.
Yeah, so definitely a good idea. Definitely hit those up.
Now for 2016, I got to go back to JoeCon, and I missed not being there the previous year, and I do miss not having the custom figure. I wanted Robo Joe. I want all these parts. It's not necessary to call your convention set complete if you don't have these custom con figures, but I kind of want them.
Well, the way that I see it is that on official basis, they're an official kit. Okay, so the end result of the figure is going to look different every single time. So I wouldn't say that you have to have it as a figure to have everything. But if you looked at all of the things available from the convention that year, a kit is one of the things that was available. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. So for 2016, the figure was a little callback to the adventure team with Bullet Man. Now, the recommended parts included pants, so me avoiding the bare legs is not me being prudent. It's me following the guidelines for the build. This year we were given everything but the legs, so torso, waist, arms, and head all provided. A little head right there, and we actually got the water slide decal for his torso there too. We also got a little helmet as part of the accessories. Kind of the callback to the 70s figure with the little pointed tip and the bullet, part of the Bullet Man bit.
I'd say it's a perfect callback to the 70s figure. That's probably like one of the key pieces that people are jealous of whenever they look at some of these things, is the helmet on that Bullet Man. Bullet Man's such a fun figure to have in your collection, and to add a custom one is great. And I would say that helmet really, really was done well.
Well, you think this helmet was done well, but I'm not so happy with this one. But I was glad to finish my figure in class because one of the bonus accessories was this. Yeah, it's a chromed helmet, and it's a little better designed too. You can see a little contouring around the face instead of just eye holes cut out. You get a little bit of dip there and a contouring around the nose. I think all in all it's a better helmet. Now, the head itself, people were wondering the sculpt might be. Thanks to Patrick, we tracked it down as an Alberto Del Rio WWE figure. I managed to track down this figure. This is how it's officially painted. Very close to how I would have painted the Bullet Man and how I did paint the Bullet Man. And since the paint on the official release figure is a lot sturdier than mine, I actually like to use that head as the default. And skin tone actually matches what I painted the neck anyway better, but the chromed helmet fits a little tighter, so every time I tried to put that on the cast figure, the eyebrows got scraped off. So that's why I like to use the WWE figurehead. And I love the way that looks. It's so shiny, so reflective. Yes, that's what I want the Bullet Man head to look like.
Yeah, my Bullet Man, I ended up going the extra mile and adding the booster rockets to his boots to kind of call out the Palatoy version of the vintage Bullet Man. So I was pretty happy with that. I have to, be happy with a custom that I make every now and then.
If you're not happy with it, you're too much of a perfectionist, sir. Because that looks great.
I appreciate it.
The other bonus items were continuing the bat theme. We got this little saw blade arm attachment and this laser arm attachment, which I'm to this day not sure if I'm holding upside down or not. I don't know which way's up. And then the third thing, finally moving away from the bats, is this little cocktail with a little umbrella in it. I think the idea was that you could give it to Baroness and she'd be, lounging around on her holiday. So, that was actually the last year where the bonus items were specifically bat-oriented. From here on out, it was just, some accessories you could give to whoever you wanted.
Okay, that takes us up to 2017, does it not?
It does. And for 2017, our build... Yes. These are more generic ones because, we really only had artwork for Chef. So I just kind of use the blank explosion. It works nicely because the figure goes right in front. And here he is. 2017's figure is called Dead Shadows. He's meant to be sort of a zombified Red Shadows member. And there we go. He even came with a little hat there with an embossed Red Shadows logo. It's very neat. For this one, we weren't given limbs. So head, torso, and waist, and the skirting is what came with the figure. I chose to keep the color scheme a little more simplified because I like my toys, my custom figures, to sort of blend in with the retail figures, so I don't get too detailed with them. But, you know, I like the little silver braiding and the black belts and the little silver buckles. And I tried keeping the zombified look to be consistent across the G.I. Joe zombies. So he's kind of a more bluish, grayish. I think I used some Destro legs. And he's a nice little original Red Shadows character. And if I so choose, I can just swap out the head and make him a human figure. So the fact that he's a zombie isn't so big a deal, since, you know, nobody else in Red Shadows is a zombie.
Following what you said, I want my stuff to go right in and fit directly in with everything from retail. So that was how I went with mine.
And the bonus items that year were a little off the beaten path. I believe these weapons are actually kind of based on weapons from the Red Dead Redemption game. You've got this 4-barreled rifle. It might be a shotgun. I'm not quite sure. And then this tomahawk.
I think that if a zombie apocalypse happened, those would both be weapons that I wouldn't mind having. So I think that's probably the thought process there. You know, nice shotgun to take care of several zombies at once, and then a tomahawk for when you run out of ammo. That's definitely what's going on.
Still, they're antiques. I would worry about metal fatigue.
Well, I'm probably in a zombie apocalypse. I'm probably going to run out before those weapons would run out.
I'd last 5 minutes in a zombie apocalypse.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, Dead Shadows was a nice figure to get as a custom class figure, but he's kind of on his own. At the time, there just wasn't much Red Shadows themed characters in that scale, in that style. So I was actually very happy when it was revealed that 2018's custom class figure would actually be a Red Shadows. Nice generic trooper, or, you know, Red Vulture if you want to make him a little more specific. With this figure, we again had to provide the limbs, but everything else was given to us. So we got this original sculpt head, the torso, waist, skirting, web gear, pouch, and the rifle. And I think mine came together very nicely. I'm, you know, was particularly proud of the little striping I got on the shoulders going there, and the eyes. My little trick there is actually taking some decal sheet of just plain white and cutting those into rectangles and then just kind of sticking them straight on instead of having to try and paint that. And while we didn't get a water slide decal this year, we did get the sticker for the helmet there, the Red Shadows logo.
Yeah, that's right. They did a sticker. I believe that I ordered some water slide decals so that I did do mine as a water slide because, again, like I said, I was a little more prepared than I had been that first year. I probably would like to note also that the example figure didn't actually have eyes. I think that the creative choice that Alyosha had, he was doing a call out to the coloring of the white by having those details next to the visor painted, like a bright silver, or maybe he had them white. I don't remember which he had them, but it looked good regardless.
And he actually had fully casted limbs and everything for his figure, including some extra accessories. So if you track down the photos of that, you can see how he's got, I think he had an RPG and then the like the Zap backpack in red with black rockets. Now the bonus part for this year was actually one I really enjoyed. It's the portal gun. So scaled to 3 3/4 inch figures, and I'm sure it's probably taken from the NECA figure. I don't know, I haven't compared it, but maybe it'd be a 3D sculpt that's 3D printed. I'm not quite sure, but
I think it may be a 3D sculpt. I'm really not sure where he got that. I don't know how it necessarily connects to Red Shadows, but it kind of continues the theme of including accessories that may be similar somehow to video games. So there that is.
It's also probably a more efficient mass device.
Yes, that's a mass device shooter. Not that. No way. We don't have any kind of RoboCop or Portal or any of that. None of that.
No. Now, since 2018 was the last official JoeCon, Hasbro reps there, Bobby Vala and Daryl DePriest, they wanted to do something a little special for us. So we actually got another bonus, and these were a doozy.
Yeah, tears to my eyes kind of doozy. This is completely unexpected and amazing.
They're probably a little bit infamous right now, but in case you've forgotten, we got a bag of 8 original sculpt heads from unreleased figures. These Hasbro was willing to give to us, but they were also very restrictive. They do not want these getting out there. We are not allowed to replicate them. We are not allowed to sell them. And though they were molded by John Russell, he has since destroyed the mold, so they cannot be made again. But still, it's a treat to have these things. And the heads are Zombie Cobra Commander from the 2012 concept case. Zombie Storm Shadow from that same case. An animated style Scrap Iron head from Renegades. An animated style Renegades Duke. Animated Renegades Storm Shadow. And animated Renegades, I think this was an Iron Grenadier head. And then there were 2 that we didn't even know existed. The first was a Rise of Cobra AVAC head. Kind of a interesting design, kind of melding the classic 86 AVAC with the Rise of Cobra design aesthetic. And a Sky Striker head, Tiger Force Sky Striker.
Strangely, that's one solid piece, but we've seen that helmet before online as a part of the canceled Jurassic Park toy line, or at least it's very similar. But that figure was going to have the body of Airborne and the head that ended up coming out on Mercer inside that inside the online multi-pack of Renegades. So it's one that I've wanted for a while. I was trying to track down those Jurassic Park figures, and I didn't manage to get that one. And it's only ever been found as a test shot as far as I know. But that helmet was removable, and on this one it's not. So it's kind of interesting to me. I kind of wonder, which one came first.
Well, if you look at the bottom, it actually does look like the head and the helmet might have been 2 separate pieces that were just kind of molded as one.
Okay.
And as you can see there, none of these actually have a hole for the neck bolt drilled out. So even if you wanted to paint these up, you'd have to put a lot of work into it to make it fit on a figure.
Yeah. I'd really be curious to see if anybody did finish those. Like, did anybody take these and actually drill a hole in them, paint them, and put them on a body?
That's the thing. This was all given out to people who are, by their nature customizers, but we're also, Joe fans, and having gone to a Joe convention and paid the extra for it, we're probably people who are more aware of the value of Joe figures. So I think they'd be probably hesitant to actually paint these heads.
It almost is one of those peak moments for me of G.I. Joe in the modern era G.I. Joe, where we were doing those surveys based on the concept case on generalsjoes.com, talking about what ones we liked, what would you want first. And as time has passed, the club has taken care of a lot of those figures for us, but there still were several of them that were missed, and we pretty much did get almost all of that Cobra Commander in the later Retaliation waves. If you look at the figure that's in the concept case, really the only part of it that is a zombie is that head. So it's one of those things that I don't like to see anything G.I. Joe be lost to time, and to just know, oh, well, that thing was just completely destroyed. There are none of those anywhere. It's just gone. We'll never have it again. And so it's nice to know that in some shape or form, fans out there have a few of these in order to hold on to them to make sure that they're not permanently lost. Like, maybe someday they will find a use officially within the toy line, and if Hasbro doesn't have them anymore, well, the fans have watched over them for them.
Yeah, I am happy that these parts have had some sort of official release, even if you can't do much with them. But I think every part now from that zombie set has been made. Because if you look at the concept case figures, the hands and feet that were zombies were just reuses from the zombie Viper again and again.
I think the Viper helmet, wasn't that the thing that we determined did not come out
Right, it
yet?
might be
I think
that was the Viper helmet, the only thing, because we saw the Steel Brigade helmet, and
Yes.
that was it. I think others were just variations. There's a repainted zombie Viper.
Yeah, and a lot of the heads that were used were the same as that Steel Brigade head that the club then did release.
Right. So there we are. Those are the official build JoeCon custom class figures. And it is a sad thing because there are no more Joe conventions, but the spirit of the custom class will live on because Joe Fest has actually created a custom class for its convention, and they're actually bringing John Russell in to do the figure for that.
Awesome. I really hope to make it this year. I may have trouble getting that weekend off, so we'll see, but I'm hoping that I'll be there. It would be like the third time I've missed Slaughter if I don't get to go, and it'll make me sad.
Now, if you want to see some more of these figures, obviously we'll throw up some pictures throughout this video. We might put up a few more pictures out on social media in the days to come. But also, we do have archives of these on JoeJoe. It's kind of buried in the convention figures pages, but they are there.
As an added note, if you were at the convention and you customized your figure, if you could, post it. I would love to see more of it, and if possible, tag Alyosha, because I know that he, this is largely a passion project for him. He loves seeing the finished work of things that were based on parts that he made or helped to make. So definitely, if we could see more of those, that would be awesome. I would love to have like a massive archive of all these. But if we can't have a massive archive, it's just nice to revisit and see what different people did with different parts, because I think that you get a better picture of what the entire class was like whenever you see more customs. Every one of those that gets added gives us a better idea of what it actually was like.
Absolutely. And there's so few of them out there that it would be nice to see just the variety and depth of it. And I would just love to see what people did with it.
Okay, so that I think that we can move on to the next topic of the night, and that is a topic that you brought to me. Whenever you first brought it to me, I thought that you were a little crazy, that you were bringing up something that really didn't matter much at all. But it's you, so sometimes whenever you and I are just having these conversations, you get me interested in something that I had absolutely no interest in, and then you make me look at something in completely different light. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to put this podcast out there, is that sometimes you've made me look at something and go, wow, I really didn't know anything about that, and I thought that I did. And that was happening with this. So then it was like, you've got to include this in the next episode. So take it away.
So that thing is Photon. And a lot of people probably just think of it as sort of the knockoff to laser tag. But in fact, Photon was first, and it's actually really first.
Yeah, the GoBots are the Hydrox of laser tag.
You stop that. So, yeah, when I first brought it up is actually when we were putting together our title sequence, and we were trying to find images of toys that have, little unique premium points on it. And I was like, oh, Photon, let's see if they have that. And they did, and I threw it in the title sequence, and you were like, okay, whatever, I guess this guy likes Photon. Moving on. But then, a few months later I started talking about it, why I actually liked it. And you'll notice when I brought that up, I brought up a novel. And the reason I brought that up is because these first two novels are how I got into Photon. It's a weird story because basically I was just a kid being driven around town one day, and I noticed these two books in the back seat of my mom's car. Not quite sure how they got there, but the art on it actually kind of intrigued me, and I decided, I'll take a shot and read them. The books aren't too big, I'll read it. And I got really into it. And the thing is, after I read them, my brother read them. And we both really liked the books. The problem is, number 2 ends on a cliffhanger.
So you had books numbers 1 and 2. Is that correct? So you had them in sequential order.
Yes, just 1 and 2. And we read the hell out of those things. You'll notice there's a lot of wear and tear on the cover. These are actually my second set of books because the first ones got so torn up the covers fell off. But this was the early 90s, and I didn't know where to go to get a book for a young adult target audience that was 5 years out of date. It took so many years to find the rest of the books because eBay was not a thing.
Yeah, back then it was just like potluck at a bookstore.
Yeah, and so for the next several years, if we came across a used bookstore, we'd go in, we'd look, we'd find nothing. In that time, though, I did have some success. I found at some antique stores 2 different coloring books. So I knew there was stuff out there. And it was actually kind of my first view of some of the characters described in the books because all I had to go off of at that point were the covers.
How well did the descriptions of the characters in the books match what you had in your head?
Oh, they were totally off.
Okay.
They were you get the description of a lizard man and thinking, okay, Leon, he's got a bazooka. And, well, that's not how I would have thought of a lizard man looking.
Okay.
Or Uncle Pike, who's described as a con artist who's also a shapeshifter. That's Pike. I didn't think he was a kind of a froggy blob thing. But there we go. But it was the early days of the internet, but that meant there was the internet, so I could start looking this up. And I found, holy crap, the laser tag is real. They were talking about. There were actual Photon centers, actual buildings you would go to and play in arenas playing laser tag. And it turns out that Photon was the first laser tag business. And that the home version of that came out in 1986, a few months before Laser Tag from Worlds of Wonder. So not only was it the first laser tag, it was also the first home laser tag. And I actually managed to get a hold of a gun from my cousin who got it from a garage sale. So my collection built up piecemeal, just kind of stumbling upon these things. And talking about stumbling upon things, you know how these are my second set of books? One day, I was just at my local comic book store, the one that had my box, the one my regular one, and just sitting on the counter by the cash register, wrapped in plastic, was this. The entire 7-book set of the Photon releases.
So you didn't even have to go digging for it, like in the back of the store or something. It was just right there on the counter for you. It
was just right there. I was like, what? I've been looking for this for years. And the comic store owner was confused because, as far as he knew, nobody cared about Photon. He charged me $1 a book for the whole set. I got this for $7.
Wow.
Yeah. I was so excited. And I was so excited when I got to the last book in the series and I found out it was not a cliffhanger. So it was doubly exciting. The 1 through 6 series are written by a guy named David Peters. I didn't know who that was. It took me way too long till I realized in like 2008 or so, David Peters is Peter David. He's a very well-known comic book writer.
Probably not the best pseudonym if you're not trying to figure out who it is, though.
It worked.
Yeah.
I actually did a Google search on David Peters after several years, and that's when I found out it was Peter David. What the hell? So like the next opportunity I had at San Diego Comic-Con, I had him sign all 6 books.
What did he have to say about that? Like, I would imagine that that's not the first thing that people bring to him.
He was surprised and he was wondering where the hell I got them.
I wonder how many copies of those they printed.
You know, I don't know. You can still find them on eBay now if you look, but you don't find full sets of them. I think there's like one auction listing I found that had all 6, or 7 with this one. This is called Thieves of Light. This is technically the first book. It's by a guy named Michael Hudson, but it's meant to be more adult-oriented, so it tries to be a little more grittier sci-fi. It's essentially a retelling of the first episode of the TV show.
A TV show?
Yes, there was a TV show. And it was 26 episodes, and it was live action. But by trying to make this gritty, they kind of mess around a bit with the continuity and the mythos. Like in this, the Photon Warriors, the good guys, are just like one unit of many, as opposed to being like the only unit. So it kind of doesn't fit in with the rest of the series, but it's still nice to have, nice to go through. And most of the episodes are now available on YouTube. So that's how I've been able to watch these shows. I still haven't made my way through it. I've made through a few episodes, but sadly there's one episode missing. But
who did you say was the producer on Photon? What company released it?
Deke. Do it cheap. Deke made it. It's crazy. And even crazier is it's kind of like a Japanese sort of Power Rangers type show.
Interesting.
Before there was time, there was Photon, the crystal energy force which creates and sustains life in our universe. The warlord of R and his evil army are determined to control Photon and use it for their own evil ends. The only thing that stands in their way is the Earthling Bodhi Lee, who along with 5 other Photon champions are known as the Photon Warriors.
The light shines!
This was actually, the show was made in Japan, and all the aliens are like rubber suit, Sentai Ranger villain type construction. And a lot of it's shot against a blue screen or a green screen or whatever, and the actors are just kind of standing in front of it. But, I mean, a sci-fi show for kids on an original series on a television budget for a children's show. That is ambitious.
Yeah, we'll put it that way.
The writing, the costuming, it's not the best, but it's fun. It's a little campy. It tries to tell a story. It tries to tell a fable in each episode. And they actually insert some really big songs into like each episode. Like the first episode itself had Footloose and Susu Studio. That's probably one of the reasons why this show will never get released on DVD, is because there's going to be a multitude of audio rights they'd have to solve there, music rights.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that they were able to get those rights at all, to be honest. How many episodes are there?
26. And for being a one-season show and a one-season kids show, there's an ending. The last episode of the series is actually kind of an end. They defeat the bad guy once and for all.
Wow, that's crazy.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So, do the novels that you read, do they take place in continuity with the cartoon, with the TV show?
They're supposed to, yeah. So they kind of just... And there are time gaps in between the episodes, like... The second episode starts, and the main character is, like, told he's late as usual, versus, the first episode is when he actually joins the show. So, there are places where the books could fit in.
Okay. That makes sense.
Generally speaking, the books have a lot better writing than the TV show, and they have a little more fleshing out of the characters. In Photon, your main character was Bodhi Lee, and they fought against the Warriors of R. And
R.
every character had R, A-R-R at the end of their names. Like this guy is Warrior. They had a pirate-themed guy named Pyrar.
He should have just been
There was
R.
also there was Destructor. There was Bugar. There was Dog-R. And then there was Mandar. And Mandar is described as the leader of the Warriors of R in the TV show's opening. And you can kind of see him in the back here of Book 3, In Search of Mom. And the story about him is that he actually was a Photon warrior who was captured by the Warlord of R and then tortured and implanted and basically brainwashed into being a bad guy. So, you know, some body horror there, some deep themes going on.
Okay. So what other Photon stuff have you found? Do you have a Photon gun handy, by the way?
I do have a Photon gun handy. And amusingly enough, I have nothing to shoot against. I don't even have the battery cover. But
Well, do you have a battery on you?
I have a battery on me.
Because I got batteries on me. Yeah, basically the way that these work, just so that I guess maybe I'll do the demonstration really quickly. They have the IR emitter and an IR
There it
receiver
is.
right on the front of the gun. Did you just get me? Did you just shoot me?
So this is crazy. Okay, it's not the battery. Look at this. I can't, if I'm aiming at the camera, I can't hit anything. If I get out of the camera's way, there's something that's preventing the gun from functioning right here. But
I'm not having that problem. That's strange. So I guess I'll just continue to demonstrate. Front of the gun, emitter, and, well, this one actually has a hit on it. There's a hit marker on the back there. It takes 3 hits. Yeah, it's different than laser tag because not only does the gun have that, but also on the bottom, you may recognize that as being a port that's similar to an Atari 2600, 7800, or a Sega Genesis. I believe it is the same kind of plug as those. But that's how these plug into the chest sensor, which is totally different than the laser tag brand guns. But go ahead and continue. I don't mean to steal your thunder here. Just showing them off since you're having battery issues.
turns out it wasn't a battery issue.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a battery issue. It was...
There's something going on in this room that every time I lift my gun up, I get shot. But if I turn the gun over here out of the way of the camera, it functions perfectly
that's
fine.
very strange.
That's freaky. There's something going on. I'm getting irradiated or something.
It's probably my fault.
But yeah.
You know, whenever I plug batteries into these, Photon takes one 9-volt, and as soon as I put a 9-volt in those old guns, I actually dropped one right the second before I put a 9-volt in it. But, you know, I put the 9-volt in, pulled the trigger, and it worked right away. Laser tag, it didn't work right away. There are 6 AA batteries instead of one 9-volt. There's 6 AA's. Whenever I put them in there,
6 is ridiculous.
It was like it drained the batteries that I had right away. So I used rechargeables this time, and when I put the rechargeables in, I had to turn off. There's actually a silent mode. There's a silencer on this, so you can kind of play without noise. I don't know how fair that is, but whenever I switched that on and off and then back on, then the thing came to life. And underneath here, there's a bulb that I believe the bulb is only for that light effect that's on the side. It's an old-fashioned incandescent flashlight bulb. One of the things that I liked a lot about laser tag as opposed to Photon as a kid is the fact that it had this, the Starlight sensor, with the heartbeat. But really, if you look at Photon actually had those sensors as well. It was just not in the set that I had gotten. So with Photon, you can play just guns, or you can play with guns and the sensor, correct?
Yes, they had several sets available. And actually, that reminds me, one of the commercials for Photon actually compares Photon to laser tag directly and tells you how Photon is a superior product. They must have gotten hit with a lawsuit or a cease and desist or something, because there's more commonly found is a commercial where it's like a generic laser tag box, but it's the same commercial. They just changed the inset shots.
You have been chosen to be the ultimate laser warrior. First, choose wisely. Choose the only laser that really works. It scores on the helmet, scores between phasers, and the module. When going into battle, don't get tagged. Be the ultimate laser warrior. Only Photon really works together. You have chosen wisely. Be the ultimate laser warrior.
First, choose wisely. Choose the laser that really works together.
It scores on the helmet, scores between phasers, and the module. When going into battle, don't get tagged. Be the ultimate laser warrior. Photon really works together. You have chosen wisely. Photon, only from Entertech.
Yeah, that was gutsy. I was impressed with Photon there.
So what other Photon stuff do you have coming?
Well, that's interesting. Since we started talking about this in preparation for the show, I actually went back on eBay and started digging around a bit to see what I could find. And first up is this lunchbox, an old thermos brand. As you can see from the sticker on front, that's actually based off the laser tag center, the Photon center itself. The tower in the background is a dead giveaway. That's kind of a key feature of every Photon center's arena. But then, you know, you've got your red and green team figures in just plain black clothes. It's not based on any of the characters from the TV show. And I also have the thermos to go with it. As you can see, it's just some kid in a yellow shirt. So, you know, generic based on the actual game. But what really surprised me was this. This is a box for a Famicom game. And that's an NES system. This was a Nintendo game for Photon, released only in Japan. With some really funky art that doesn't line up to anything else Photon I've ever seen, but it's crazy. I found an emulator of the game and played a little bit of it and died very quickly because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and it's not a very straightforward game. But there you go. There's the cartridge itself. I bet you didn't know that NES games were pretty much half air on the top. The carts themselves don't need to be that big.
I think the only ones that do need are the larger ones, like some of the Marios and Metroid and Zelda. I think actually use the entire space, but most of them they're only halfway in there.
There's some discussion of the bad guys you come across in the back of that. That's kind of fun. So there was a Photon video game. Who knew? What I'd really like to track down, though, are the LJN Photon action figures. Oh, those have been a dream of mine to get for a while. There's a Bodhi Lee and a Warrior 2-pack. Those are fairly easy to acquire. What's really hard to acquire are the Series 2 figures, which were released individually, but you've got Leon, Pyrar, Destructor, and Lord Beethan. And those guys are kind of impossible to find, but I would love to have a set of those guys someday. Sadly, Tivia, Bugar, Pike weren't even made.
So, and it seemed like those Series 2 figures weren't even made when we were first looking into this, correct?
Yeah, for the longest time I didn't think anybody other than those first 2 figures came out, but there's evidence that 4 others did, and they just gotta track them down. I wish that they would have put out Tivia. She's the lone female character of the bunch, but it's kind of made as a love interest in the books, more so than the TV, but that would have been fun, but alas, she only exists in prototype form.
I actually have a couple of laser tag things. Like I said, I've been picking it up where I can find it. I have this laser tag helmet. I do not, unfortunately, have a Photon helmet. I have the laser tag vest. I have at least half a dozen guns that I could get working. I was making fun a lot whenever you were first showing me stuff about the size of the Photon helmet compared to the laser tag helmet, which, incidentally, this laser tag helmet has always looked like that one Action Master to me. I am convinced that there's an Action Master from Transformers. What's his name again?
Kickoff, I think, is what you're looking for.
You're right, it's Kickoff. So the Action Master Kickoff, if you look at his head, it has to be based on this. It even has like the sensor area up top and these things on the side. So I find that interesting that it seems that there was a Transformer whose head was based on this helmet. Probably because somebody had them at the time and just thought that they were cool. Because it was several years later that the Action Master came out. What?
Let's just sculpt it in.
Sculpt it in, yes. So I was making fun of the size of the helmet. So I'm going to have to do this because I kind of feel bad making fun of the size of the Photon helmets because I've never played with this. This belonged to somebody else. And I did clean it prior to now.
Good idea.
But I'm going to put it on just to demonstrate how maybe it's a good thing that the Photon helmets are a little bit larger. Let's see. We got to do this. I don't know if my Bluetooth headset is a good idea. Kind of hurts. Okay. Yeah, that's...
Got a headache yet?
Pretty tight. No, but I did realize last time I put it on that I can kind of, like if I get my sagging face, I could just kind of tuck it up in there, and I look young again.
It's a cheap facelift. Who knew?
It is. You get a facelift with your laser tag accessories. I mean, do I look awesome or what?
I like the W on the top there. Very nice cross-marketing.
Well, yeah, I think that W is Worlds of Wonder. I like to think that it's Wayland Yutani, but I'm pretty sure it's Worlds of Wonder.
You have a worse fate in mind if it's Wayland Yutani instead of Worlds of Wonder. Your helmet's a Cylon.
I'm getting hit. Are you shooting me?
No. Go ahead. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that. I'm about to get... Oh, I'm done. That was that. So much for the laser tag helmet. I keep getting hit. What kind of rays are flowing around our houses?
I think our cameras might be doing an infrared thing.
Oh man, so much for the facelift. I'm old again. So I think that all told, the marketing on laser tag was a little more successful, but Photon probably was the better product. Am I wrong, or would you agree?
And don't tell me this guy doesn't look cool, because I would want to dress up like him.
You know, I kind of wonder, you show that tower, if anybody has like a Photon Center near them, or a place that used to be a Photon Center that is now open or still open and has a different name, I would love to know that, because you did look into trying to find where the old Photon Centers are, correct?
Yeah, first one in California isn't too far away from me, but it's either an Asian supermarket or a fitness center now. It's a pity.
Yeah, that's a shame. And I did read online that there were actually Photon centers set up worldwide. There was somebody going around, they did set up some in Japan. I think they set up some in Ireland and throughout Europe. So there were definitely Photon centers being set up all around the world.
If you are anywhere near Laurel, Maryland, there is a place called XP Laser Sport. XP actually kind of stands for X Photon. That is an old Photon center that is still in business today. They've kind of upgraded. They don't use the Photon system anymore, but I believe the arena is still based on the Photon arena. So it still sort of lives on.
Did we have anything else Photon?
I think it's going to wrap up Photon for us here for now. I've got some more stuff on the way, and I'm still hunting, so I'm sure we'll cover this in a future episode or maybe a Talking Points video. But Photon, I have a love for it, and I want to share it.
Well, yes, that covers Photon. I think that we can probably move on. I definitely wanted to talk just a little bit. This is kind of a short topic, but as you know by now, I really love some of these old catalogs and looking through them, because I feel that not only do you get to see the brand that you love, that I bought the book for, but I also get to see some of the other things that were being released at the time, because it's more interesting to me to get a feeling of what the market was like and what was all out there, all at the same time. And whenever you're dealing with only one company, you're only getting that company's snapshot, but it also tells you a little bit about that company and what they were focused on at the time. Two of the catalogs that I have are Takara catalogs from 1987. These are not Takara catalogs for the United States. They are ones that were released in Japan. Unfortunately, the ones that I have chunks cut out of them, somebody was apparently putting together a collage or something at some point.
Or a ransom note.
Right. Yeah, who knows? This one is catalog 1987 Takara. So this is just their basic catalog. The part of the reason why I bought these is, as you know, we have a heavy interest here in G.I. Joe.
You don't say.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, actually, G.I. Joe's kind of a thing with us. This page starts off with a little bit of Koro-Q, and we've mentioned the Koro-Q line before because this is where some of the watches came from that ended up in chronoform. It is also what became penny racers that the Transformers, Cliffjumper and Bumblebee, were transforming into Koro-Q vehicles. This page is G.I. Joe. That's the main reason why I bought this book.
Is Destro wearing Torch's backpack upside down there?
Yes, he is, and he is threatening Snake Eyes with something that he can use to put out fires because it comes from barbecue.
Does he think Snake Eyes is a cat? I'll scorch him!
Yeah, while he has something that's very explosive on his back. He's really thought this through. But one of the cool things in here is that they actually were demonstrating how customizable G.I. Joes are, because there are 7 customs pictured here at the bottom. And if you visited Joe Customs for a long time, these probably sound familiar. That's because a long time ago I scanned these in and put a topic on the forum there. So on Joe Customs, we've really talked these through kind of a long time ago, but I really think these are worth revisiting. And it is super interesting to me, the fact that Takara was treating these not necessarily as model kits, but playing a little bit into that market of, hey, these things are super customizable. And I really like some of them. I like the skeleton, and who doesn't like a guy with an accordion? G.I. Joe with an accordion.
It's Weird Al.
Right. Aside from that, there's Transformers. It looks like we are in the Transformers 2010, I believe is how it was said in Japan. It's the stuff that takes place in 2010. Usually in these catalogs, I'm looking for something pre-production. You don't really see that in here at all, but there is this beautiful piece of artwork right here.
At the Studio Ox Beast there?
It may be. That would make sense. But one of the things I really wanted to point out in this catalog, because I liked it, are these weird things that I'm looking at this, and like I said, I like to look at some of the other things that the company was making at the time. And here are these guys. They kind of reminded me of food fighters at first when I was looking at them, because here they are in the kitchen and they're all battling each other. And the interesting thing here is you could see that they have rub signs. So I dug into these a bit and looked up what they're called. They're actually called Takara Telecoma Fighters. Or Telecoma Warriors, I believe. But I believe that it functions similar as Battle Beasts, where you have your rock, paper, scissors fighting game going on with these rub signs. And they kind of remind me of something modern, don't they, Phil? Like, you actually had the exact same thought that I did whenever I started mentioning these to you. Because I had the thought, so I showed you the pictures of these, and you immediately said the exact same thing that I thought, which was...
They're BotBots.
Exactly.
They're the new Transformers, little figures that transform into everyday food items, among other things.
Yeah, exactly. So they remind me a lot of BotBots, which is interesting to me because BotBots people keep comparing to Battle Beasts. They're like, oh, they're these little guys that are kind of rubbery, and you know they're cheap. They come in a big pack, and you just collect them, and they look great if you have a whole bunch of them together. And that's true for both Battle Beasts and of BotBots. But it was interesting to me that these almost seem like a bridging thing, even though they're not Transformers. They're Telecoma Fighters. They seem to be a little bit somewhere in between, and I would love it if somehow, whoever was designing these, it's still not real clear to me how these are designed, whether or not they're being designed by Takara and Hasbro is using them, or if they were designed by Hasbro and manufactured by Takara. But this is the set that I picked up because it includes a can of a fountain drink, I guess, or soda pop, I will say, to not offend any particular region of the country. It's pop. Soda is the adjective, pop is the noun. Therefore, if you're going to truncate it, it's pop. I couldn't resist. Sorry.
Soda.
No, it's pop.
If you're in Britain, it's a fizzy drink.
It's a fizzy drink. We'll leave it at that. Or maybe it's not. Maybe there's just some cran juice in there or something.
Ah.
Yeah, I threw that out there for no reason. There's a watch in here. I like this one. It says 1984 on it. I don't know what time 1984 is because it's not military time because I don't know what minute 84 is.
That's 8:24 p.m.
I don't know. It's a broken watch apparently, but it's awesome. I love the fact that that was something that they decided to make. And there's a bottle in here as well, a football, a TV. But as I mentioned, I have 2 catalogs. I also have, this is also from Takara in Japan. It's a 1987 catalog, but this one is the Fantasy Travel catalog. And the Fantasy Travel catalog has even more stuff cut out of it than my other catalog.
Fantasy travel. For those who want to
Yes.
Imagine going around the world.
Right, so I'm looking through this catalog and I'm like, this is great. You know, I'm gonna bring up these catalogs on the next episode because they have the Telecoma fighters in it. That reminds me of BotBots, and that totally makes this pertinent to this episode. And then I come across this Photon.
Nice.
Can't get enough of it today. Yeah, so apparently Photon in Japan was released by Takara. So here is their promotion for it. Phil's already shown the video game, and actually the video game is pictured in here as well. But it's nice because we get to see the packaging that the Photon sets did come out in Japan. Here we go. This is the page that has the video game. I think the video game kind of looks like it's an early walkthrough like you would see in Doom or maybe Castle Wolfenstein before that.
Yeah, it kind of is, but it's really primitive and kind of hard to figure out where you're actually going. And then things just kind of drop down on you and you kind of have to shoot it.
Oh, this one actually includes Battle Beasts. Look at that. So the same year that you have Telecoma Warriors, you have Battle Beasts in the catalog. And more stuff is cut out, but this does have like this beautiful gatefold of a pre-production Fortress Maximus, and I love this picture because it has the guns that don't flip out from the side of his waist, that actually extend from his waist. So they'd be, you know, basically you could pull them out with his arms down.
Ooh, that's
yeah,
pretty.
he's slightly different colors as well. Like the blues are so dark they kind of look black. But going back to the Telecoma Warriors, there are some others pictured here. And the ones that I find interesting are these ones that look like cans of pop.
Soda.
And there is a Mountain Dew and other like a Fruit Up. But as I've looked online, it turns out that they did do Pepsi. And Pepsi, the figure for that kind of transforms into an Uncle Sam character. So I think that Pepsi being a red, white, and blue product, they use that to represent the United States entirely. And you have like a robotic Uncle Sam. It's pretty awesome to see.
I'm sure Coca-Cola would have a few words with Pepsi about that.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. Yeah, but yeah, no Coca-Cola because we have Mountain Dew as well, which I like the Mountain Dew being in there is because it kind of reminds me of Dispensor from
the first live-action Transformers movie.
Yes. So Mountain Dew existing as a transforming Takara toy all the way back in 1987 is pretty awesome. And there is a can of carbonated beverage that is available as a toy. I would love to see a repaint of that done as this Telecoma Warrior, or honestly any of them. If they can't get the licensed one, just make a reference somewhere in there, and I think that would be fun. I'm all about the callbacks to the earlier brands, and it definitely seems like something that fits so well with Transformers, especially with those rub signs and the connection that it seems to have as far as creatively, even though it doesn't seem to have any connection story-wise to Transformers or Battle Beasts or Beast Formers. Creatively, they are very similar. They go very hand in hand, and I like it. It's fun.
It's too bad the Transformers Collectors Club isn't still around, because they would definitely make links like that and bring Telecoma into the Transformers multiverse.
Well, I think that about covers it. I definitely like BotBots. I would particularly recommend, as with many Transformers things, that if you are interested, you should definitely visit the TF Wiki, because the TF Wiki has a wonderful guide for everything BotBots. If you have any questions, you probably won't have any questions after you visit their BotBots page. And then if you have any questions, then go ahead and bring them up somewhere online. But they're very, very thorough as to what packs are out there, what's available, and kind of a guide to making sure that you get all of them.
Yeah, TF Wiki has really embraced the bots, and the individual character pages actually tell you which type of pack you could find that particular figure in. So if it's available in a 3-pack, or it was in an 8-pack, or if it's only available in a blind bag, it will let you know.
Yeah, and they have a handy Excel spreadsheet. I made sure that I actually referred to that whenever I was going to buy them for myself.
Yeah, I think if you're going retail to buy your figures, it's unavoidable. You will have extras. If you're going to go eBay route, it's probably more expensive, but you can pick and choose.
I know that I saw something on the wiki about color changing bots. You got to visit the TF Wiki. They've got all kinds of great information on there. So it sounds like we have some even more interesting things coming from the bots line. I definitely hope that we see this thing run for a long time, and that we get all kinds of crazy household items. Not just plungers. Some of the names of some of the characters are even funny. That's the thing that I've enjoyed about them, is that whoever is designing these has really embraced the entire theme. Not only are they goofy designs, like I think there's a cupcake that's a vampire, isn't there?
I have not seen that, but I wouldn't put it beyond me.
Yeah, there's definitely a vampire. I think it's a cupcake. I don't know. I don't know it that well, but it's one of those things I'm still looking into it because it amuses me. And then where I came across the 87 catalogs and wanted to talk about that G.I. Joe and Transformers stuff in there with Fort Max, and there were the Telecoma stuff in there, I just thought that it was something that anybody who's interested in these now would like to see going backwards. So we'll definitely post the scans of those at some point and include those, in the video so that you can kind of see better pictures of those. So that does it. Photon is everywhere, I think, is the theme of this. And if you haven't been paying attention, you probably have some Photon nearby and you're unaware of it. Hopefully everybody's gained a new appreciation for it, as I have. Other than that, did you have anything to add, Phil?
Yeah, I hope you guys have embraced Photon like I have. I'm just trying to spread the love of it. It's really underrated, and I hope you guys appreciate it. I hope you guys liked our look at the JoeCon figures. It's not something you see much of, the custom figures, every day, and I want to see more of those, so I hope you guys do spread it around. Link us on our socials. We'll, put out videos and pictures on our YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook pages, and comment. We want to see what you got.
Okay, absolutely. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching this episode of Articulated Points. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'd appreciate it if you would like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to learn more about some of the toys featured in this episode, or want to follow us on social media, links are in the description below this video.
The light shines!